when we have an energetic injury, sometimes the physical manifestations don't make sense to science. And you'll see shame start moving through the body, so they'll start coughing. And a lot of people that struggle with ADHD and anxiety are running. Yeah. They're running from themselves. So like you said, the collapse of all I wanted from my father was his presence. So I went running, trying to prove to get him there. And in the end, I lost myself. Welcome to another episode of Liberate Your Bliss. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Chelsi, and for those of you that have been watching for quite some time, today I have a repeat guest on. Her name is Kristy. She is my co-facilitator at The Path, where I'm doing my Bali healings, as well as the co-founder of Liberate Your Bliss Energetics, where we have really just kicked off our Soul Path Mastery programs, as well as our Embodied Healer teacher training. So I'm really excited to have her on today. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the depth of healing and what actually happens healer to healer. And if you're listening to this on one of your favorite podcast stations, I would love if you tune into YouTube, because we're going to be showing you some behind the scenes footage of what actually happens in a healing session. You'll see the emotional releases and the physical responses that occur as we exchange energy work. If you're interested in the healing process, what in the hell is actually happening with energy healing, as well as if you've been interested in taking on the journey of becoming a facilitator yourself, then this podcast is for you. We are not going to hide anything from you guys. We're going to show you the raw, the real, and the vulnerable work that goes on in the scenes of the healing space in Chamagi. So let's get started. It's been 1 year since you came into this exact studio and we met to talk about fighting and healing, and now here we are. We've kicked off a business, we've opened a healing space, and we are working with hundreds of clients here in Bali. So excited to have you on, Kristy.
Thank you for having me back again. I'm a frequent flyer on the Liberate Your Bliss podcast.
Yeah, and I definitely don't think this will be the last time.
Definitely not.
So yesterday, we exchanged pretty intense healing sessions. I can't wait to show the world just what actually has happened since we began. I know we've described this on the podcast before. I think seeing it actually will show you the depth of what goes on in a healing room.
Yeah, I think so too. It's beautiful for people to be able to see something in real time, and for us to hopefully do justice of explaining what happens inside of a healing space and what you're working with in healing space as well, like the levels and the depths of what is there to create profound healing and change in people's lives.
I mean, you and I have now probably exchanged 20, 30 healing sessions each, I would say,
least.
If not more.
Yeah.
And every time, what is so crazy to me is we have no idea what's going to come up. And even though we know each other's stories so well after engaging in the energetics behind it, it's like opening a black box, which I really want anyone watching this to kind of understand, that healing, it's not, you're never really going to understand what is going on. It's the energy will showcase that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. When you go in with an intention to heal someone and to work with someone, it's almost like there's this little soul contract with each other, and your spirit, your soul always knows what you need in the exact right timeline. So I think as human beings on this plane, we're like, oh yeah, well, this person means this, or if I touch this point, that means that, and that links to that. We like to make things very linear, but the soul knows the way. There is a beautiful process when you can just set the space, learn to really hold space, and allow whatever needs to happen and come through for that client in that particular time to come through. And our minds cannot know that.
The mind is such a funny thing. You know, we always want to logically make sense of a healing, you know, like even we held space last night for a group, and it's, you know, we do a shamanic soul journey and they meet their animal guides, and it's always like, well, you took me on a path to a tree, but I had a fish. That doesn't make sense. And I'm like, well, could you create, you know, a space where the fish is on land? I mean, I don't know. The options are kind of endless when you work with spirit. There is no logic to it.
There's no logic.
Which is why religion makes no sense. Because there's no logic, there's no words, there's nothing to comprehend.
You can't put words to the wordless. We try and we try and we try. I think that's half of our problem. But when we can drop into those spaces and just trust and have that deeper connection with ourselves, like if we are everything, and we can learn how to come deeper inward, well, then we have access to everything. It's quite crazy. I even had a client the other day, we're doing some body work around a knee issue, and I asked, what animal is he seeing? He's like, started laughing. He's like, there's a sardine here. He just started laughing, and I was like, okay, let's just follow that thread. And that made a lot of sense to him at the end, and it gave him the perfect message. Now, I could interpret that from a book or whatever and be like, oh, this is what a sardine means. But the connection that he had with the sardine was special and unique to him. Even though it carries its own little message and frequency, we still are having kind of like a relationship with that energy. And I feel like it's very much the same when we go through healing, and especially with what you took me through yesterday. There was animal guides there, and there was things that were happening that maybe you didn't know, or maybe I didn't know when I was working on you, but we're trusting the flow of the body and the energy, and that you are held in that space and I am held in that space, and that whatever you need or I need in those moments, like, we will get it.
And I think it's really humbling, because the truth is, I'm not healing you. I'm holding space for you to heal yourself and find your truth and your authenticity and what matters to you and what's in resonance to where you're at. And you're holding space for me to do that. And it doesn't matter what I am experiencing when you are on the table. All that matters is that you're safe to experience whatever you need to experience. And I'm asking curious questions to try to get you to go a little bit deeper. But for me, when I see a tiger, that means speed. But for you, when you see a tiger, it meant something completely different.
Yeah, in that moment. And maybe it will mean speed later on down the track. Maybe that will come. But for that particular moment, the tiger was like protection, and it was like supporting me to clear up the emotions and the blockages that were kind of coming through.
And that's why, like, no book, no modality, no healing course is going to heal you. It's going to teach you how to sit with yourself and work with yourself. But for anyone out there that's been going to the same healer or has been doing modality after modality after modality, thinking that this one's going to be the one that helps them, like, you're addicted to healing. And there's no reason to be addicted to healing. I want people to come in and work with us and get out. Come learn the tools, become their own healer, and then step into the world and start to help others. You should not be seeing the same healer unless there's an intentional container like we have to go deeper into consciousness. But if you're every day going and seeing somebody else, something's wrong.
We are our own healers. And so find someone who teaches you how to go deeper into yourself. And I think another really important part is like integrate that into your 3D physical life, because that's the other thing. You can go, whoop, whoop. Oh, I had this really crazy, amazing journey and it's all really fun. Like you said, addicted to these fun journeys, but is my actual 3D life changing as well? There's an important integration piece with the like spiritual and the physical and vice versa, because we came here in a physical body to have this physical experience. There's no separation, and yet we still separate that all the time.
So beautiful. It's almost like, go and have these mystical, transcendental experiences, of course, the plant medicines, the journeys, all of that. But also remember that your life is also spiritual.
Yeah.
Like in every moment, like right now, this is spiritual.
Totally.
There's no separation. And I think, again, if you're continuously going to healing, but your life, like you said, isn't shifting, it may be time to look inward and think about, maybe, is this a dopamine thing? Is this a chase again? Am I searching? Because I've been addicted to healing. So I can sit here and put my hands up and say I resonate, because I felt something again. I felt my body again, and I couldn't feel it otherwise. So I got addicted to going into these cathartic, crazy healing experiences where my body was having these big things. And it's funny, because the more work I've done, the gentler the healing is, actually, the more I'm receiving in my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I can see that, even, I guess, knowing you for the past year and watching that. And, you know, I've been a modality chaser and addicted to healings as well, and exercise and many other things in the past, so I get it. I think I even said to you yesterday after the healing, I'm like, oh, that was gentle. Like, yes, there are emotional releases and things like that, but that was like a pretty gentle session for you. Is that how you experienced it? Like intense, right? Deep, but not like crazy cathartic.
Yeah, and I think before, so for anybody that's done healing before and you've gone and you've done upregulating breath work, the Wim Hof stuff, the Kundalini activations, they're beautiful. I've trained in all of them, so trust me, I'm not judging them. I love them. There's a time and a place. But I got so addicted to having that anger come through my body or to have that shame riddle through my body and actually viscerally feel it, that it was almost like I was chasing feeling and coming from, again, a place of such disassociation. Feeling again was like the pendulum of the polarity swinging from one extreme to the other. I could feel again, and I was so obsessed with feeling because it kept me in the body. But now I'm able to go into healing spaces, staying in the body, but not having to go into such pain and suffering. It's more gentle. But yeah, yesterday was intense still, so it's crazy to say that yesterday was gentle. And if you're watching this, you'll see a lot of emotion coming through because yesterday was pretty deep. What was it like holding space for that?
It's a real honor to hold space. And like I said, why it was very gentle was just to see this massive progression with you as well, because obviously anyone who's listened to the podcast knows the level of trauma that you've been through in your life, and your poor little physical body has been through in your entire life. And so it's a lot. And yesterday, even though very deep and profound on a consciousness level, felt very gentle to the body. It's almost like maybe of a less addiction to the trauma response, because I know there's been times we've held space and it's so big and there's so much trauma there, and maybe there's a deeper level of safety, or we went slower, or there's just been a massive shift in your consciousness, maybe all of the above. But it was really beautiful to really get permission from your body. Like I would pause and wait, and I'm like, your body's not ready yet. And then wait for your body to go, yes, I'm ready to go there now. And then hold and wait. And yes, I'm ready to go there now, because good. And just then, her leg that I'm holding right now gave away a little bit. So before it was like rigid, and then she just let me have it. So again, we're moving from, oh my God, scared, fight or flight. Okay, I'm more relaxed now, which means we can move forward. Now, because I think it's very important to understand, as someone holding any type of healing space, like any type of healing space, whether you're doing body work or not, how much trauma people are holding in their body, which could be from this lifetime or past lifetimes. Like, it's insane what I think we're all in a trauma response, really. The world is. Look at the world we live in.
I feel like my entire life has been spent in fight or flight, but with this addiction to performing, right? To achieving and moving really fast, and that dopamine addiction coming because there's so much adrenaline coursing through my system at all times, because my physical body has been through so much and the energy never was able to leave the body. So it's almost in this perpetual state, this chaotic state, and it needs to move, because if it doesn't move, it's almost like this electrical thing that's going crazy and it needs to move, which is why I'm aggressively working out all the time. I have very big muscles in my body for a woman because my body is really tense. I'm very tight. And I think the more healing work I've done to come into a peaceful ventral state, when we talk about polyvagal, connected, safe, secure, and not so anxious to try to move and run. But my coping mechanism, if anybody understands fight or flight and how this works, is flight.
Yes,
I want to run. I want to run. I want to get the fuck out of here because of the trauma that happened when I was a little girl with my physical body and all of the abuse that I went through. I want to just move and run. As a little girl, that coping mechanism came from disassociation, which for any of you with ADHD, you're disassociating. That's what it is. You're not safe in the present moment, so you're doing 50 things at once because you don't feel safe to be here right now. And that's a coping mechanism that gets developed over years of hyperperformance and years of being in that adrenaline pushing state. But if you don't know any different, it's really hard to heal and calm the nervous system down. Meditation feels like death to somebody with that. It's like levitating under a water waterfall.
Impossible.
It's impossible. So I think for me, what's been really interesting is the more I've allowed my body in healing to return back to a safe state, which isn't cathartic. It's actually like savasana in yoga, or the end, when you can receive the downloads. The more my life now, I'm able to find that softness, that stillness, and not be aggressively chasing big emotional things.
I felt that in your body yesterday. Obviously, yeah, we've worked together a lot, but I felt that willingness, maybe is the right word, to come back to safety and stillness and peace. And you can see in the video that your leg, you can literally see your physical body when it goes into flight, like I want to run, I want to get out of here, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be here, and freeze kind of simultaneously. And it's like, okay, I'm ready to dissociate and go. I'm going to do a breath with me and a bit of sound. Now she's just holding on, like she doesn't want to go there. It's painful. You see the legs shaking as well. And one of Chelsea's responses in fight or flight is flight. Like, I want to run, I want to get away. And so again, I just want to let her know she's safe to feel this. I'm right here. I'm right here, yeah. I'm right here. You're not alone. Not alone, babe. And go out, but the willingness to just come back in and be okay and safe in the body. And I think that's a real testament to all of the work that you have done and continue to do.
What you did so beautifully yesterday, and you'll see this in the video, is titration. You took me into a psychosomatic place, and you saw the slightest shift in my energetics, that the energy was starting to become chaotic. And for anybody that's a healer, you know this when you see somebody that's about to be going into a trauma response. And I think a lot of us want to push people in to that place because, yes, of course, on the other side of that is freedom. But sometimes if we push too far and the body is not ready to go in, there's a reason that we're disassociating. The body doesn't feel safe, and we can't force healing. Healing is slow, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's how it goes. So when we're rushing in to face our trauma, we're bypassing the truth that the body doesn't feel safe. So what I loved about yesterday was that we titrated in and we would pause and wait for the body to come back to safety. And then we'd push it a little further because I was really able to see what was happening rather than just going back in, because sometimes I think with healing, we can be re-traumatizing ourselves.
I completely agree. I think I also spoke about this yesterday is with talk therapy as well. And we spoke a lot about how trauma lives in the body. The mind is an embodied process. But when we constantly go talk about it, it's that constant perpetual revisiting of the trauma. But again, same like healing. If it's not changing in your life, well, is it really changing? Yeah, great. You've got a better understanding of it. But that's only part of the picture. Without bringing the body in and the emotions in and releasing all of that and the spirit in and the higher level of understanding in, nothing really changes.
Because it's crazy, the fear that started, so the healing started, and the fear was, again, I felt this hyper performance come in that I've been working through, why is it that everything I do has to be 1,000 miles an hour? Why am I constantly filling my schedule to the brim with no space in between to breathe and pause? Because to me, I feel so good when I'm achieving, when I'm performing, when I'm doing good, when people are saying you've done good. To me, that's the high I'm looking for. It's dopamine again, and I'm conscious enough to catch it, but it's so deeply rooted. And what was really beautiful was that when you titrate in, you bring to the fear, but in each moment we see what is there is shame or anger or grief or guilt that's kind of all entangled in. And we allow those emotions to move slowly, safely, and then we titrate a little bit further in. Because if we push all the way in, yeah, of course there's anger there, right? But under all of it is deep, deep sadness that's keeping me disconnected from love, from God, from source, because I believe I'm separate. I believe I'm unworthy of love, or I'm going to be punished, or whatever it is that has separated my consciousness. It's a deep sadness that I don't really want to feel. And pushing into that is just going to create more shame, more anger, more guilt, more resentment, more frustration. So we have to trust the body.
And the process. And I think also the titration piece, that moment of pause, that moment of coming back, also allows you, and you can tell me if like, actually, like now the mind's satisfied. Oh, I get this a little bit more now. Like things are landing and clicking into place because we're not constantly just pushing the energy, like whatever emotions are coming through. It's like there's almost mini integration periods throughout the healing.
Yeah, you're having these beautiful aha moments. And that's really, really important, is that, once an emotion's been released, yes, the mind's trying to make sense of an insensible thing, and the energy work is profound and it does work. But I do believe if we give the mind some space to come to resolution multiple times during a session, which is why I've changed a lot of the way I hold space with groups to be more guided, to allow for more keys to integrate what's happening. Because of course, yeah, you will integrate on your own, and I could integrate it all on my own, but as a space holder, if you have a way of pushing, but also holding for the mind to make sense of what's going on, you're creating more safety and connection between the mind, body, soul alignment. And that's the whole game anyways, is bringing the mind in alignment with the soul through the body. But if we're pushing the body too much, we're just going to create more disconnect and fear.
Yeah, and more trauma. Like you said, constantly re-traumatizing over and over and over again. And I think, again, just driving that point home of, as a healer or as a space holder, you have no idea what someone is going to walk into that space with. Like, you might look at someone and be like, oh, they're happy, they're good, they've got the best life ever. Like, they feel like they've got nothing, nothing's wrong, nothing's going on. And then you can take them to a space and they can release something that's so deep. They can find something that's so deep. Like, are you prepared to hold that level of depth?
And you're right, it's like a black box. And if you're opening that black box, you have to be prepared for anything to come up. And you may know everything about their story. What's the most important thing to do is really show up to an energy session and clear the slate. Don't go in with an expectation as a space holder. Because had you really gone in and held thinking that it was about my story, what went on with my right hip yesterday, you probably would have assumed was sexual trauma, and it had nothing to do with that.
Exactly.
Right? And I think, again, if you're trying to save your clients, which a lot of us do, and I can remember in the beginning wanting to get my abuse clients to the no, like I was like, get to the no, and I would push. And now it's more, I'm actually taking a step back and I'm letting their body show me what they need, not what I think they need, because then I'm playing God, and then I'm no better than any of the religious priests and popes and priestesses that are around the world trying to
just more ego
do that, right?
Like you said at the start, it's the best thing you can do is get yourself out of the way to let the spirit work through you, your spirit, your soul, and their soul. And I feel like your spirit and your soul they know what's going on. Like, we actually don't know. And so I could have just gone into story, oh, here's Chelsea's sexual trauma again on the hip. I didn't actually think that. I was like, oh, interesting, what's here? And I was just very present with the body. But it was beautiful to actually speak to you afterwards about what you are experiencing, going through, because I get little impressions here and there, as do you, but we don't really know. And so what was that like for you? What would you say your process was yesterday and the resolution you came to?
So when the energy activates in my system, I've been doing this a long time, I know pretty good how old I am in the energy if it's this life, I work with 3-year-old Chelsea a lot, 8-year-old Chelsea, rebellious teen Chelsea, and then I got cokehead Chelsea, and then infant Chelsea. So there's 5 versions of me, and mind you guys, there's infinite versions, but these are the 5 that I've come to know very, very well. When the energy comes, I'm like, okay, here I am again. I've been here before. My soul knows what's going on. And when the energy kicks in, so I know with me, when my feet start to turn in and my legs start to shake and I feel the tension in my hips, I know I'm about 3 years old.
Your subconscious will bring you exactly the moment. So we are working with Chelsea's 3-year-old right now. So her body is stuck in age 3. The trauma, yeah. And so you can see even that emotional response, yeah. That her 3-year-old, the pain that her 3-year-old is holding. And while she's a very conscious human and a higher self and everything's here, right now she's trapped in 3. And if you can see that right leg turning in again. So again, when the trauma happened, this is what the body was trapped in. That's why we always tend to go to that right leg. That's why she's had injuries here, because her 3-year-old is still trapped. Her physical body of a 3-year-old is trapped in the memory of what happened. Take a deep breath for me. Doing amazing. Right here. And good. And then the leg relaxes.
Because you have to remember, when the trauma happens, your body contorts in some sort of a way where the injury happens. So when we experience fear, we're in flow, and then something happens and we get scared. So what happens? We stiffen up. Yeah. And we contort. And then all of a sudden, if we were unable to process the emotion that came through the body, it gets stored in the fascia and the tissue. So for me, a lot of my stuff gets locked in my hips. From sexual abuse, my hips curve in. I have a lot of hip and back issues. And the wild thing was, the last 2 weeks I've been out. I haven't been able to train because I've been suffering from a back injury on the right hip that nobody has been able to figure out what is going on. So when we have an energetic injury, sometimes the physical manifestations don't make sense to science.
Yeah, of course. And really that's where that's where energy work and shamanism and all these things kind of come into it, because before your physical matter, your energy. And so where's the root cause? In the energy, in the consciousness that over time has formed into physical matter, into physical injury or disease. And so when we work with all 4 levels, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual in these ways, like the shifts that can happen are miraculous sometimes, because you're not just working, oh, you've got a hip injury, here, go take a Voltaren, rest, sure, all of that might be very helpful, or like corrective exercise and all that, very helpful. Mentally understand, very helpful. Seeing a chiro, very helpful. But what really caused that? What was the root cause of that, which I think we started to tap into and started to resolve yesterday, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of the fear that came into the body when I asked what was going on was this fear of stillness. And this injury has forced me to not go to the gym and has forced me to slow down. As we approached it yesterday, this vision came up of me as a little girl, 3 years old. And this was when I used to do 15 puzzles at a time, 7 puzzles at a time. I'd dump them all down and I would do them as fast as possible. And I watched myself be so proud of how fast and how quickly I could do a complex problem like that. And I would solve them all and I would go run to tell my parents how fast I did it, because they were then proud of me. So that was the first image that came in that I worked through. And that was just kind of facing this energy of staying still, because if I'm slow, nobody will be proud of me, is kind of the basis of that. And it was really interesting to feel that in the body, because it felt in the moment similar to the fears I feel on the left hip, because fear feels like fear. And that's the thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be any crazy physical abuse or sexual abuse to experience fear. Fear feels the same for me regardless of where it shows up in the body. And this was all around performance. And then I had an image of my dad leaving. My parents struggled when I was a baby. My mom and my dad were fighting a lot. They had just opened a restaurant together, a lot of money stressors, issues that went on between the two of them. And when we were little, you think when your kids are little that they don't remember what's going to happen, but I remember my dad leaving, and it made me so sad. So then I remember we worked on the heart chakra after this, and I was so sad seeing my dad leaving. And this was the first time that I felt separation, because my mom and my dad weren't together and I had to be at one house over the other. I wanted my dad to come home more than anything in the world. He's my favorite person on this planet, still is to this day. and I wanted him to come home. And I found that when I did really good at school, when I was Annie in the play, Dorothy in the play, when I played the piano at school, when I got student of the month, when I got straight A's, my dad was there. When I played well at soccer, my dad was at all of my games. So I learned as a child that my dad's love comes when I do good. So I started this incessant need of doing good. And it gets a little more complicated from there, but I really just saw this little girl that just wanted her dad's love so much. Consciously, I know I have my dad's love. Like, my dad is amazing. He's such a great dad. We're so close. But there's a piece of me that believes my dad left and he'll come back if I do good.
Yeah, and that injury, so to speak, lives in the body and then repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like at one point I asked you, like, what does this part believe? I can't remember the exact words, but it was, I'm not enough. Were those the words that came through?
I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough. I need to just breathe that in. Yeah. And let that come up. We need to bring that all into the heart and let that not good enough just crack that heart open.
So hard.
I know. You can see she wants to run again. As she meets some of the deepest energy and consciousness that continually creates karma. Yeah, all the anxiety. Everything's constantly running because of
I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough.
To prove it.
Yeah.
If I don't prove it, then they won't stay. I won't be safe.
Yeah. And so with these sessions, with everything Chelsea just said, you can start to put the threads together. And she consciously is starting to see the loop that's playing, that the body has shown us. Good.
Oh man, that was huge. So the thought, because again, when you're in that state, you want to get to a point where you can ask the energy, what am I believing right now? It's a big piece of the work that I do. And it was, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough for my dad to stay.
Yep.
And that's a really sad thing for a 3-year-old. So I looked at my little 3-year-old and she was so good enough. She was more than good. She was the star. And I lived my whole life proving I was good and better than everyone. And I've been so competitive. I've done a lot to make sure that I was the best because I needed to be the best to feel safe. Mm-hmm. And that's the crazy part is I didn't feel safe. It came from fear.
And trauma.
It wasn't that and I can see how this translated into the relationships with my siblings as well, because I needed to be the best. I remember running home with my report card because it was straight A's and tacking it to the refrigerator, even though my sister and brother didn't have straight A's, and they'd be like, please don't tell mom and dad. And I'm like, no, they need to see that I'm the best. But that was really that 3-year-old coping throughout my whole life.
Yeah, that 3-year-old coping with the thought that it's kind of like it's her fault. It's my fault in a sense because I'm not good enough to have them stay together. So there's this piece of almost self-blame that comes in, which, you listen to this now and you're like, well, that's fucking crazy. But it doesn't matter that it's fucking crazy now as an adult because your 3-year-old still holds on to that consciousness, that belief, and that trauma in the physical body. And that's trauma. I think that's the other thing, we held space for 3 beautiful friends who came to Bali just last week. And one of the girls said, I didn't realize how much stuff I've got in me, how much trauma I'm actually dealing with. I thought my life was that's normal. And I think a lot of us are led to believe oh yeah, that's normal. But when you actually step out and you're like, actually my childhood was pretty fucked up. I probably wouldn't do that as a parent. That was kind of traumatic. And that's no shame or blame on the parents. It just is what it is. But again, this is the level of stuff people are walking around with every single day. So as a healer, it's very important to be aware of all of that and be able to read the signs and know how to hold people through those things. Whether, like in the moment, I didn't know that's exactly what you were going through. We asked a few questions and I got there in the end, but it was purely working through what the physical body was showing and working around that.
And the fear of not being good enough, again, you then need to start to kind of follow the thread of that. So I'm not good enough, so I have to perform. If I'm not performing, I'm not safe. It's really about finding the earliest wound that's available to look at, to see where the consciousness was created from that we're searching for with healing, because then we can understand and we can reparent the inner child to say, like, I don't have to do this as fast. And this all came up with me competing in one of my spiritual groups where I was literally listening to people's letters from their masters, writing down everyone in my class's masters and what their goal was for the year. And I looked at it and I started laughing. I'm like, why the fuck do you care? And it's because I want to be the best. I have to be the best. But conscious me is like, that is so ridiculous that you're doing that. And I can catch it, but I'm like, where is this coming from? And that was kind of the journey, was to show me 3-year-old me still feels safer doing that.
Yeah, because she's so worried about not being good enough.
For her dad specifically.
Yeah.
And I think that really ties into each one of us, regardless of how good your childhood was, carries a mother wound and a father wound. There's a reason that we chose these parents in this incarnation. There's a reason that we were born where we were born. We chose all of this, as wild as that may seem to you watching this video. And it's okay if you love your parents to also acknowledge that they hurt you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make them bad parents.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of crazy if they didn't hurt you in some way, shape, or form. You know,
we're human.
That's part of the process. You know, it's just part of it.
And I feel like we really collapsed that father wound because it got a little bit deeper when we started to work through the shame. And you'll see shame start moving through the body, because I'll start coughing, and shame almost feels like you're just so disgusted with yourself that you can't even believe that you're experiencing it. You're just gross.
And you like you want to throw up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that came from, I started to get all the visions of all of the dangerous places and the shameful places I put my body in because my dad would come. Mm-hmm. So I started to really explore the relationship I had with my dad's presence in the creation of my life, because what I wanted more than anything in the world was my dad's presence. I felt that he was absent when I was a child. He was, again, this is normal. He's running a business. My mom was home with me, but I wanted my dad home too. And I think as children, we most likely do want both of our parents home. That's who's giving us the love that we received from Source before we came. So we want their love. We want their presence. And it's not just about when you're with them, it is when you leave and you start to wonder, is it my fault that they're leaving? What can I do to make them stay? How can I keep them around me all of the time? And you start to learn these coping mechanisms. So the other time I started to see my parents got along when I was being abused. When I was bullied at school, my mom and my dad joined forces to protect me. They put their stuff behind and they joined forces to protect me. When I was raped in school, they joined forces to protect me. And even with every man I dated, my parents would always, if my heart was broken, my parents came together to support me. It was really wild to see, wow, okay, so there's also mother wound stuff going on here, because I'm protecting my mom when I'm being abused, and I also get my dad's presence. Everyone gets along. My dad is there when I'm doing good or I'm abused. And there's my whole life creation right there.
Yeah.
Doing good and abuse. And I watched all of it get created from that moment that my dad left as a little girl and went to a different house, and I wanted to fix it.
Yeah. When you were like, I'm not
good enough. I must.
X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was deep and it was heavy, and it was really sad to experience that. And I think for anybody watching this, I've dealt with my father wound so many times. Like, in order to have a conscious relationship like I have now, where Andre has stepped up in my life massively, God bless him, I had to break up with my dad. And I know you can relate to this, because our fathers are who we choose to protect us. So if you had a really horrible experience with a father, you're going to struggle with trusting men, but if you had a really great dad, it's also hard, because that relationship becomes such a pivotal part of your existence that keeping them there on the pedestal actually keeps you from attracting a good man, because your dad's going to save you if the man is bad, and you love your dad more than any man. So I actually had to kind of see the depth of the pain that my mom experienced being with my dad as a lover, not me looking at him as a father, in order to say, you know what, my dad's not perfect. Which means I don't have to be perfect, which means nothing's really perfect. Everything's perfectly imperfect. And take my dad down and actually move my mom up from the shit pit. And once I got them balanced, I was able to then balance my own masculine, feminine energetics, which then my inner world matched my outer world, and I could call in a conscious partner. So I think that's another big thing that anyone doing healing work should think about is, do you have a father wound or a mother wound that you still haven't worked through? And is that keeping you from the love that you're looking for? Because most likely you're in a trauma response. You have been since you were a little girl or boy, and that trauma has to be healed before you can step consciously into union with another.
100%. And then the cool thing is, if you look at this whole thing globally, and we look at your soul path, which we've spoken about in a different episode, and all of our clients get when they join Soul Path Mastery, our course that we do together, is if you look at your greatest shadow consciousness, the thing that you've chosen to come here to heal, which in actual fact you are in a mastery of, it is the exact same consciousness that you are working through in your ancestral karma, which is cool, right? So we can actually start to see your soul chose all of this so perfectly. It is part of your divine plan to have these experiences, mainly with your family, that are around the lack of love almost. You know, the energy that you've got there is all around unconditional love. So it starts to look at like the conditions on love and where I'm not safe to be loved and where I have to perform and prove because I'm not enough to be loved. So your choice to come here in this life and choose to heal that consciousness, not just for you, not just for your family, but for like the global consciousness of like you as a being. Like it's so big when you start to look at it. You can see how perfect it is and why you so beautifully take people through inner child work and inner child healing, because you literally chose the biggest shadows to be projected and reflected almost through your family experience. And that is what you were healing on a collective level.
Yeah, that seems so big. The depth of that work, you know, for those of you that don't know my story, and this is the first time watching it, when I was a little girl, when my parents did separate, my mom didn't have the support. So she had to bring me to my grandparents' house to be taken care of. And that was when the abuse happened to me, the sexual abuse that I went through, that I'm still struggling with to this day, because as a little girl that disassociate all of it, I don't have the actual memories to say this happened, but I have the physical sensations in the body that show me that I feel completely unsafe at that age. My body turns in. I feel disgusting. And all I'm doing now is validating that inner child over and over and over again and telling her that I believe her, because that's what matters. It doesn't matter what happened. What matters is that I believe her, and leading her through that trauma. But what's so cool is that my whole life put myself in harm's way, and then I disassociate. So I flight. You know, I don't run from it. My body physically takes the abuse. So I would have sex and I would black out and have no memories. I would drink and black out. What is blacking out, right? Blacking out, like I was physically present, but I was consciously not present. How do you explain that? I was somewhere else, right? So we can explain that spiritually. We can explain that scientifically, however we want. But I was not physically present. I had no memories. And that was, again, my kryptonite as a child, to disassociate and not remember the abuse. But as an adult, disassociation has caused me to be not present, to have extreme cases of FOMO and never feeling safe and present where I am. My relationships have struggled. I've had a pretty terrible memory. I don't have many memories from my 20s, which makes me really sad. But what's really cool was that last week when I went to Riviera in Chamagi, I had this guy at this bar, and he was being really, really mean. You were there to one of our friends, and he started calling her all of these names. This poor woman, she was probably 100 pounds. What's that in kilos? Like 40 something kilos.
Yeah.
And this man was like a big man. He was a white man. She was an Indonesian woman. We're in Indonesia, and he started abusing her, saying, you know, calling her a lesbian and can I say
Horrible things.
He was saying horrible things. And so I don't know what happened to me, but I felt heat coming through my body like I've never felt before. And I was like, you know what? And all I could feel was like, I'm going to protect this woman. And I stood up in the guy's face, you were there, and I went nose to nose, almost chesting this guy. And I was like, get the fuck away from us. And I actually started screaming. And he finally moved away. Now, was that a smart thing to do? No. Could I have handled it with more grace? 100%. But to me, that was such a massive win in my healing because I didn't disassociate, I didn't run, and it wasn't about protecting her. It was about protecting my little girl.
Yes.
Because nobody protected me.
Yes.
And all I wanted was protection. All I wanted was my dad to come save me. And I stood up to that guy. Now, the aftermath was horrific. And you might be able to talk about that a little bit better, I think, than me. But the aftermath of that, the adrenaline coursed through my body, which is what is supposed to happen in fight or flight.
Yes.
Fight or flight should happen. You should go into it. The adrenaline should spike. You should stick up for yourself or get the fuck out of there. And then you come back into the body, and the body needs to shake, cry, purge through. That's what the animals do in the wild.
Yeah, and then that brings you back to a state of balance and homeostasis, and you can move on with your merry life as you wish.
But what was happening to me, my life was a perpetual state of fight or flight. The adrenaline never stopped pumping since I was a little girl. I was always like this. So to see that I was able to go in and have that adrenaline pulse through, afterwards, I was sweating, crying, shaking. It was horrendous.
Exhausted.
But at least I'm not perpetually looping there anymore.
Yeah.
It was a win.
You went from flight to fight. Yeah, still the whole trauma response and the normal response that we need sometimes, but so beautiful for you to see that shift and for your little inner child, your little girl in there to go, oh, she's fucking got my back. Mm-hmm. Like, that's really powerful. I think I remember saying this to you one day, and like a guy I started inner child work with like ages ago, he said to me, take your inner child, because my inner child was so hurt and felt so like unseen and weak, and I was fighting professionally at this stage. He was like, take that inner child, and I want you to imagine her sitting on the edge of the like classroom as you're in there like beating the boys up, you know, so she can feel safe and strong enough to even speak again. And so yeah, maybe you could have handled it a different way, but your inner child now knows, like, actually, I don't need my dad to save me anymore. I've got me, I'm safe, and I can come back to presence. And at the very end of your healing, you said I asked your inner child to give you something, and she gave you a puzzle piece shaped in a heart. And we pulled that back into the heart, we spread it through the body, and I asked you if you had to say what this has given you, what word is this? And what it came to was presence. And so isn't it funny, the whole time you just wanted your dad's presence, and you've been running from presence this whole time, and now you have your own presence.
Which is the greatest gift I could ever have given my little girl, was my presence. And it's also the greatest gift that you as a human being can give to the world, any of you, is your presence, your authentic presence. It doesn't matter how angry you get, how sad you get, how guilt, whatever happens, being there and present for it is key, and not running your entire life. And I think a lot of people that struggle with ADHD and anxiety are running. Yeah. They're running from themselves. So like you said, the collapse of all I wanted from my father was his presence. So I went running, trying to prove to get him there. And in the end, I lost myself. So coming home and giving myself that gift of presence makes complete sense for the role that my dad played in my life, to give me that gift of presence, which gives me that gift as a space holder now to be present for my clients. Mm-hmm. Because if you can't be present for yourself, how will you ever be present for your clients? You cannot give something to someone else that you haven't given to yourself. It was beautiful. I can't thank you enough. I mean, you've brought me back into my heart space more than anybody. Even the time when we allowed the heart to break, 7 different times.
Yeah. I think that's the magic. As I've been doing this work and working through myself, and God, my little inner child holds so much heartbreak, like such a big heart. But there's magic there when you can actually bring all of that craziness up into, oh, I'm just actually heartbroken. And again, you as a soul healing this lifetime and learning through the experience of love and unconditional love and what that really means. And all the conditions, love is abuse, love is this, love is that, I can't be loved because of, to then breaking all of that open into this space of unconditional love, which is a whole frequency. It's not actually like a thing you do. It's a frequency of acceptance and presence and wholeness. And you got there yesterday.
And all those fragmented little puzzle pieces that started the whole journey of my life with trying to put all the puzzle together. Like, that's really what healing is. It's really just living your life and seeing what triggers are coming up in the present reality. What things are taking you out of the present moment? What triggers are happening? What thoughts? Can you catch yourself out of the present moment, overthinking, overanalyzing? And what do you need to come back? And it's always these old fragmented inner child journeys, whether my inner child was 2 days ago or it was when I was younger. It's just a past version of you that's keeping you from the present moment because she or he doesn't feel safe, which is why inner child healing is key and fundamental to this work. People come to me and they're like, oh, can you do a womb clearing? I'm like, well, not until we heal your inner child. Start with the basics, get your inner child in check, start living a conscious life, because that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is integrating the past and the present and coming back to homeostasis as quickly as possible, because you're never going to not be triggered. It's impossible.
It's impossible.
So how quickly can you be triggered, catch it, come back to safety, give that piece of you whatever it needs without judgment, validation, and come back to the present moment. And I think stepping into teacher role is even more wild to watch, because my students trigger me more than my friends do. And I have to sit there in the role and just, while I'm fully present and smiling, can I process and see what needs, space later on? And it's wild.
It is wild. It's law of resonance. It's perfect. It all comes back to that soul mastery that you're in, which is so beautiful. And so, yeah, we've literally collapsed timelines. We've brought everything back into resolution. With the tools that you've learned how to integrate that into your everyday life. And as you do that, your life changes.
And everything changes. It's not just my life. Like, all of a sudden, my relationships change with people because my lens is I'm not looking at life like this. I'm clearing my lens to see the truth of everything. And that if you could just see that in every moment, every person that you're coming across is either present or an inner child in pain. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the most like, when you're in a conflict with somebody, I want you to ask yourself, how old am I? How old are they? If you're the older person in the conflict, can you consciously hold space and love that person enough to allow them to feel that without taking it personally? And if the whole world could just see that all we're all doing is just projecting our inner child fucking pain on each other, the world would change. Wouldn't need all the plant medicine if we could just take some responsibility for loving that inner child inside of us.
Yeah, you change yourself, you change the world.
I hope you got a lot out of this podcast. Again, you saw me go through a pretty deep journey of working through my father wound, through the energetics of what showed up in my right hip, releasing shame and anger and grief and coming back to the heart in the end, which is really key to healing. If you're looking for inner child healing, I offer both online and in-person classes to help with that on a very, very deep level. If you're looking to be deeply held through the pain of your inner child and to really reconnect with your soul, Kristy and I are still offering our Soul Path Mastery program, which is a 12-week program to do that, just that, integrate all of this work and be held deeply through it so that you don't have to go through this alone. I hope after watching this, you can really see the depth that it takes to become a healer and a space holder, and understanding the levels to the trauma that we all store, and that most clients and most people are walking around in fight or flight or freeze every single day without even knowing it. And that's exactly what we teach in the Embodied Healer program. And we're still taking a few more clients. So if you're interested in that, reach out. As always, if you like this podcast, please, please, please like, share, and comment below any other topics that you'd like to see on this podcast. And we'll see Kristy again in part 2 when we talk about her healing that we had, which was a shamanic journey work with past life regression that'll completely blow your mind. See you soon.